Welcome back to the Mario Mancini show, and Mario's special guest today is Mr. James Ellsworth. How you doing, gents?
I'm great. How about you guys?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good.
All good, all good. So, guys, you two guys have never met, so
No.
let's hear it out. Let's hear your stories.
Well, like I enjoy talking to you guys because I was in a different era, and it was quite different than anybody experienced. I'd say from 95 on, maybe 95, 96 on. I broke in July of 84, and it was very small, very tiny organization at that time. And it was 8 months. I broke in 8 months before WrestleMania 1. So it was just starting to turn the page, So when this Attitude Era came, I never watched it. So I don't really know. I know Stone Cold, and I met The Rock in Tampa when he was like 14. So I don't, he was with his father, Rocky Johnson. Vince actually put on a Super Bowl party in January of 85. So I'm just curious. I always like the dressing room was always very quiet. I mean, we ribbed around and joked around and we laughed, but isn't really like nobody ever except the top guys like Hogan and Savage, Valentine, Tito, guys like that would talk to Vince, but Vince was rarely seen. He would only come down between TV tapings because at that time he was still doing the commentating. You really didn't see a lot of them or interact with them a lot. I just like to know the difference when you were in. And I was really impressed, man, because Maurice, let me tell you the two quick stories again. So I'm coming into the ring. I'm coming out of the ring. The other jobber, and I am a jobber. I'm not a human Viagra. I'm not an enhancement talent. I'm a jobber. So the other jobber's already in the ring, and I'm coming back. Morocco's coming out. It was cool, man. Morocco didn't say anything, but I was teaching class last night. And as I was instructing, I sent a couple of videos to Morocco, how I was teaching these kids. He watched them. Morocco was coming out to the ring, and we met in the aisle, and he pushed me. And he goes, push me back. I pushed him back. He pushed me again. Push me again. He pushed me a third time. I pushed him. Gorilla Monsoon opens up the door. He goes, Mancini, get your ass in here. Right back in the dressing room. The other time was when DiBiase looked up at the board and said, DiBiase v. Mancini. This was like the fifth time now. In a matter of like 4 months. So Ted goes, he looks at Pat Patterson. He goes, and I'm behind him. He goes, people are going to think these are repeats. The only person I work with on TV is Mancini. And he turns around and goes, no offense. I go, none taken. And he looked at Pat and he goes, why don't we just run an angle? And I went, and Pat just walked away. My dream shattered. What was really impressive to me when I looked at James said, any man with two hands. And there's the example, right place, right time, and anything can happen at any given moment. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that.
So, when you're an extra talent, they call them these days. I don't say enhancement talent, just like I don't like that either, but I do say extra talent because it's just like a movie scene. That's cool. Like if you're on the movie set, like you're an extra. Yeah. Just same thing with wrestling. I hate these guys. They go on like they're extras in WWE and they put on indie posters as seen on WWE. I'm like, but it's kind of cheesy because people see you on the poster and go, wait a minute, I don't know that guy. So I hate when people do that, but that's just me. So anyway, I was an extra talent. I did a match with Braun Strowman. And by the way, I broke in 84 too. I was born December of 1984, so I did break in 84. No, but I broke through in 84. So yeah, I did the match with Strowman, and it's crazy. I've told this story before. A come out, say, like the any man with two hands has a fighting chance was my line that I thought of that day that I asked the writer, Jimmy Jacobs, if I could say. And because I knew I was punching Strowman twice. I got to hit him twice. So I was like, can I say this? Because it's kind of a play from Rocky V. And Rocky V, he says at one point, well, I figure if a man has two hands, he has a chance. That's the line from Rocky V. So I kind of made it my own. I took that and made it my own. Any man with two hands has a fighting chance. And that's what stuck. But after the match, I did the match. It was 1 minute and 29 seconds long, the match, which I tell people, that is my best match ever. And they're like, well, how? It's only 1 minute, 29 seconds long. And I say to them, because after the match, I get to the back, and the agent was Arn Anderson. And Arn Anderson said, hey, kid, you did a great job. You made my night easy. You made my job easy today. Vince is looking for you. And I was like, oh, crap.
Wow.
Why is he looking for me? What did I do wrong?
Wow.
And I thought he was going to yell at me.
Wow.
Because I walked down the ramp, and you're not, as an enhancement talent, you're not supposed to walk down the ramp. And I did, because I thought this was going to be my only match in WWE. So I was like, I'm walking down the ramp because I'm never going to be here again. So Vince is looking for me, and I'm like scared. I'm going toward Gorilla where I knew he was at, and I'm like so scared. And I'm walking toward Gorilla, and I see him walk down the steps of Gorilla, Vince McMahon. And he said, James, come here. He said, your verbiage was great, your selling was great, and your facial expressions were out of this world. I have no choice but to hire you. I'll be in touch. And he shook my hand.
Wow.
And I just got my ass whipped. Like I was like sore. I'm like,
wow.
So, and I just stood there. I said, thank you very much. And then Triple H said, hey, he's not kidding. He'll be in touch with you. He ain't going to forget. I was like, okay. So 6 weeks go by. And like the week after, I heard from somebody at WWE. They emailed me saying, hey, we have this idea for you and Heath Slater at SummerSlam. Heath Slater was, at the time, the angle was he was chasing a contract between Raw and SmackDown. Nobody had signed him, was the angle. And they were going to have me come in at SummerSlam and wrestle Heath Slater. And the winner would get a SmackDown Live contract. And they were going to have me win. But they were like, well, Heath Slater's getting over his babyface, and we want to make you a babyface, so we're not going to do that. I was like, oh, okay. I was kind of bummed out. But then, like 6 weeks later, I get a call. And it's Vince McMahon. He's like, hey, pal, you ready to come to TV? We're ready to use you. I'm like, whoa. Like, this is crazy. I just did a little, job match. Like, and it turned into all that. Like, a lot of it is right place at the right time, like you said. But I had the proper training to know that they want the facial expressions. They want the verbiage to be clean and good and unique. And they want the selling. Because if you're not selling, no one's buying the shit. I hate watching a lot of this stuff. I hope I'm allowed to say that S word there. But like,
say whatever you want.
Yeah, like I watch a lot of this stuff on TV. And I was watching this one match, and I swear I saw a guy do a Canadian destroyer off the top of cage, and the guy kicked out. I'm like, wow, like you just flipped him on his head off the top of a cage, and he kicked out. Like, no, dude, like he's dead. That's it. It's over. Like the ring hurts. It really hurts. Like a pro wrestling ring hurts a lot. Every time you take a bump, it hurts. You don't get used to it. It always hurts, and pain is real. So when I see that, people not selling those big moves, I'm like, wow, come on, guys. You're making what we do look like it's a trampoline or it's like a pillow. And it's really, as a shoot, not. It really hurts. So selling to me is a big deal. And I was taught that if you're not selling, no one's buying. And that stuck with me, and I still believe that.
Who trained you?
Axel Rotten. He was an ECW. Yeah.
See, this is, I did Tuesday Night Titans, and Vince was just a different guy back then. And believe me, if he used that word, we would have grabbed onto it and overused it. Like, for example, the Ultimate Warrior was doing his promo when he was the Dingo Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And when he did a promo, he goes, because I am the Dingo Warrior. I am the Ultimate Warrior. And Vince said, well, which is, and the Bulldogs were there. And he goes, well, what'd you say? He said, what? He goes, what's you saying, Ian? You're the ultimate warrior? He goes, yeah. He goes, I like it. Let's go with that. Well, for 7 months, 8 months, you couldn't talk to the Bulldogs without them looking at you going, I like it. Let's go with it. You know, with their English accents, I like it. Let's go with it. Everybody was saying, I like it. Let's go. So if he was calling people pal, you know, because you're the second guy that's what Vince says, hey, pal. And number one, this is how it was stiff when I was back. So these stories amaze me. They amaze me. They bewilder me because, listen, I love Greg Valentine. I love him. I have love. I have love for him, and he has love for me. And his father was Johnny Valentine, and Snuka, and the Samoan family, and DiBiase and his father, and then you have the people that are giants. You have Andre, you have Big John Studd, you have Hogan. You know, and what I'm trying to say is there was only a couple ways that you can get in, that you were accepted, okay, either through a bloodline or you were you know, somebody that's going to turn heads when you got off an airplane. You know what I mean? I always say, you know, you had to turn ahead, and people go, who the hell is that when you get off the airplane? When I got off the airplane, they said, hey, is that Uncle Mark over there? And they go, no, it's just a guy that looks like Uncle Mark, right? So I didn't, you know, but and I don't think, but the thing that baffles me is, like you said, I came down the ramp because I figured this was my only match with the WWE, right? So I was there for almost 8 years. You know what I mean? And they used me all the time. So I figured I was there paying my dues.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I get a push. And something would happen. But when I did Tuesday Night Titans, that was one of my regrets, because when we were done, Vince said, well, the set stayed together. And we walked away, and I looked at Roma, and I said, if I knew he wanted us to destroy the set, I would have. You know what I mean? I was 18 years old. It was 3 months before my 19th birthday. So, and Roma's sitting next to me. He's 25. The only person believe it or not, I have to give credit to is Steve Lombardi, because he kept insulting us so much, which was edited out of that interview, so much that one of us should have got up and went after him. And I regret that never happened, because that could have caused something, you know what I mean? But I am amazed when you go out there and do a job, and Vince McMahon wants to see you. Vince McMahon wants to see you. I mean, I remember when I worked with Wayne Ferris, when I worked with Honky, he had a torn pec. And he wanted to work with me because he didn't trust anybody else, because if he was with somebody he didn't know and he did that neck breaker, they went the other way with tear his pec more. So he wanted to work. I said, no problem, but I got to get you over. You know, so I said, choke me over the ropes. I said, tug back hard. I'm going to try to hit the other side of the ring. He goes, are you serious? I go, yeah, I'm going to see if my head can hit the bottom rope on the other side. So he gives a tug, and I go flying. And when I watched the replay, with Vince commentating, he goes, ooh, wow. After that match, he didn't come back and go, hey, Mario, I want to see shit. Nothing. So this really, you were just seen and not heard when I was in. You were just seen and not heard. And there was a huge separation, except for guys like S.D. Jones, Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, Bundy. But guys like that treated me as an equal. But then you had the guys like Adrian Adonis. You were definitely a jobber. You know what I mean? He made you feel like one. So, these stories that you tell, they're amazing. So they call you, Vince McMahon calls you, and he says, we're ready. And then you come in, and you were going to go over, but they wanted to make you both baby faces. So what happened from there?
So yeah, we didn't do the Heath Slater match, like I said, because they wanted us supposed to be baby faces, so they didn't, want to do that. So initially, I did a SmackDown, my first appearance since the Strowman match,
Wow.
where AJ Styles was looking for a partner, and he was world champion at the time, against John Cena and Dean Ambrose, who is now John Moxley.
Right.
So they were doing this angle where AJ was looking for a partner and he couldn't find one. And Bryan Danielson at the time was the general manager. He said, well, if you can't find a partner, we'll find you one. And he couldn't find a partner, so they made me his partner. And that's the first time you saw me since the Strowman match. It was in Philadelphia, very smart crowd. So they brought me on screen. I was announced as AJ's partner, got a really good reaction. And Vince is like, well, this is good because we're not giving them you. So they think it's going to be you, but we're not going to give it to them. We're going to make The Miz come out and attack you. And then The Miz is going to be his partner. And then we'll bring you back to wrestle The Miz. And the Miz was the Intercontinental Champion at the time. And I was like, all right, cool. So I go to the ring. Miz comes out in the entranceway, attacks me. So The Miz winds up being AJ's partner. And then when I came back after that, I'm fully thinking I'm ready to wrestle The Miz. I was on the airplane watching Miz matches it was a 5-hour, it was from Baltimore to California, watching Miz matches the whole time on the plane. And I get to the building and they were like, well, you're not wrestling The Miz. We scratched that. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, you're wrestling AJ Styles, who was the WWE champion at the time. And we're like, and you're going over. And I'm like, well, and I was like, and I thought it was Adam Pearce who told me that. And I go, and I kind of I never knew Adam too much before WWE, but I had crossed paths with him on the Indies. And I was like, oh, that's funny, Adam. Haha. I thought he was kidding. So I sit down at Cater and I'm eating. And AJ sits next to me and he said, hey, I'm AJ. He goes, we're working tonight. He said, we're doing an angle where, Ambrose is the referee and you're going over. And he's like, it'll be a little fun story. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, what? This is real? Like, I'm going to beat the WWE champion? You know what I mean? It's not a title match. But I was like, they're doing an angle where I'm pinning the WWE champ. Like, that's like stuff you dream of as a kid. Like, you beating the world champion or what? Like, So then I got extremely nervous. And I never get nervous because I love wrestling. I love performing.
Right. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And so I was like, no, I can't be wrestling the WWE. I went in the bathroom and I sat there. I was like, wait, what? And I have so much respect for AJ Styles because, especially at the time, my thought is this is the best wrestler in the world. He is. He's incredible. Yeah. So I'm like, especially at the time, 2016, on top of his game, just got to WWE 10 months prior. And I'm like, man, what? What? You know what I mean? And we go out there, we have a fun match. Moxley's a referee, and Moxley screws him, and I go over. And then I'm on Talking Smack, which is this show they would do on the network after SmackDown. And I knew nothing about this. They did it on the fly, and they did it and didn't tell me about it. And I'm on Talking Smack with Renee and Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan at the time. And Daniel Bryan was the general manager, and he goes, next week on SmackDown, James Ellsworth gets a WWE World Title match. And it was a shoot. I didn't know about it. I was like, huh? Are you? And so I went with it. But on the plane ride back to Baltimore, San Jose, California to Baltimore, I'm thinking, what is going on in my life? I'm wrestling for the WWE title next week. What is happening? It was just so crazy how it came together. But it was Vince. And, people can say what they want about Vince or this, that, and the other. I don't get in people's personal lives. Never have, never will. It's none of my business. It's none of anyone's business, people's personal lives outside of their entertainment. But Vince saw something in me. And even when he hired me, he said, hey, I'm going to give you 2 years. You're going to be on everything. You're going to travel the world. You're going to be on TV almost every week. Enjoy it. After 2 years, we'll bring you back every now and then. But just enjoy this 2 years because we can do a lot with you in the next 2 years. After that, you're a character that maybe we'll bring back every now and then.
Wow, he told you that up front.
Yeah, up front, right away. And
you know how many guys spent all their money because they didn't think it was going to stop, and he let you know it was going to stop.
That's it. And that's what he was telling. He said, He told me, save your money. He said, this is going to be a lot of fun for the next 2 years. I'm 5'8", 165 pounds. the average guy there is 6'2", 220. And like, I'm not like the most cosmetically cleansing guy, and I know that, but he was so upfront with me and so truthful, and so like he had a vision for me, and no one else had this vision for me, but he picked me. It was him. And this is the only guy in the history of the wrestling business that has made billions with a B off of professional wrestling. No one else has ever done it, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I don't think anyone else will ever do it. Make billions of dollars off of wrestling. So this is the top promoter of all time in wrestling history. And he just saw something, and he would tell, like, the writers and Triple H, he would tell those guys, like, man, this Ellsworth guy has really good instincts. This is a good character. He's like kind of like Dennis the Menace. Like, he's like, this is good. And, we'll give him a little run. And then, every now and then, if we bring him out, it'll get a good reaction, and people will remember him, because we'll do memorable stuff with him. He just knew what he was doing with me, mate. Like, maybe I'm the last of a dying breed that he really paid attention to and did, like, had a vision for. And I'll bring it back to Roman Reigns. Like, Roman Reigns, there was people at that time, especially, that, online's a bubble, right? It like, most wrestling fans aren't online, but Roman Reigns was getting booed out of buildings. He was getting talked bad about online, like, oh, stop pushing this guy, stop putting this guy in the main event, stop this, stop that. And Vince never gave up on him. And now Roman Reigns is their top draw. He's the best thing they have going. And Vince never gave up on the guy. If you guys remember any of that, them booing him out of the building, and them, talking bad about him online, stop pushing him. You're ramming him down our throats. We don't want this anymore. He stuck with it.
It was like what John Cena went through as well, James, even when you were there.
Yeah, but most importantly, Roman Reigns didn't give up on himself. You know what I mean?
Of course, but
it's no secret, and Maurice knows I'm very candid, and everybody knows that does a podcast with me that I'm very candid. It's well known by now that I was in a situation recently, and having knowledge of something that happened in the past, and only one other person had that knowledge, and that person was Andre the Giant, who's dead. So it was only me. But I've said this on podcasts, and I'll say it here. What you said is 1,000%. So whatever's outside the wrestling business is outside the wrestling business. But I've said this on podcasts. Inside the wrestling business itself, this guy's the Pied Piper. All right. He's it. He's the Donald Trump of pro wrestling. Okay. He is it. And he's a genius. He had, and as much as I said about Pat Patterson, and I've said a lot about Pat Patterson, outside the wrestling business, but and unfortunately, he brought his stuff inside. So it'll cost a lot of people their jobs, but his psychology, his ability for storylines and gimmicks and names and what to do, as well as Howard Finkel. These guys were geniuses on the side of Vince McMahon, and all three of those brains, they were like mega powers to do what they did. And it's just incredible. It's incredible. I feel like I broke in at the wrong time. You know what I mean? Maybe I should have broke in at 26 instead of 18. You know what I mean? Maybe Vince McMahon would have talked to me, because let me tell you something. Even you get a guy like Paul Roma, you know what I mean, who, the whole world on the podcast knows that's the closest guy to me, aside from Big Steve Tracy. Roma and I be brothers next year. It'll be 40 years. I've sat in the side of him in dressing rooms for years. Vince never walked by him and said, "Yeah, Paul, I need to talk to you."
Yeah. I mean, it's a blessing, man. It felt like I was in a movie. It really, like, I hope at some point, like, I'll be 39 this year. I'm still, young.
Yeah, very.
At some point, man, like, I feel like my life has to be like a movie or something. Like, it like that doesn't. where I roll out of the ring after doing the job to Strowman, and I got my ass beat, and like it was real stiff. And I'm not complaining; I don't mind it. I'm a wrestler. I'm not a sissy. You know, like,
I thought about asking you that, but then I decided not to.
Well, no, the cameras are right up on you, so you got to get hit.
I know, but he looks stiff.
Oh, he's 6'9", and he's like
he's huge.
His hands feel like tree trunks, and and I'm not complaining. I don't mind. I'm it's wrestling. It's not
like I tell the students, right, James? We're not playing horseshoes here.
No,
right?
it hurts. Right. It's very real. Like, it's predetermined, and we're telling stories.
And the thing that amazed me is you said, "Well, I went up to the writer. There were no writers. There was nothing. There was no writers. There nothing.
Well, it's a TV show, so you got to have writers. I guess.
Not when I was in. There were no writers anywhere. But they made there was production and everything. But I remember talking to Matt Stryker, and Stryker went off script on a promo, and Vince liked it, and he just said about Stryker, he said, "Don't write anything for him. He knows how to cut a promo like the old days."
Yeah.
My days, where nobody had a script. They just, if Vince didn't like it, he tweaked it and said, "Do it again." How long did you hold the title for?
Well, I didn't hold the title. It was a non-title match. I beat AJ, and I beat him in a couple of non-title matches.
Did you ever hold the strap?
No.
All right. So I want to ask you this: those 2 years, James, each year, how many days a month were you on the road?
And we would do a lot of tours. I would say, let's see here, if you're working 4 days a week and have 3 off, I guess like 19, 20 days a month, and but then we would go on those European tours or the tours.
Where'd you go, James? Where'd you go?
I went everywhere.
Japan, where?
Europe, China. Like my favorite was Italy. I loved Italy. Australia.
You went to Italy. Australia. Yeah. Did you go to Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia? Did you go there?
No, I didn't. I've never been to Saudi Arabia.
That was a big tour back in the 80s.
Yeah. But I remember we did one time. We were in the UK for 3 weeks. We were there for 3 weeks. I came back. And my daughter.
Did you go to Ireland?
Yes, we've been to Dublin and all that.
Belfast.
Wow.
Belfast. Yeah. I wrestled. Where did I wrestle Becky Lynch? That might have been in Manchester.
So
London.
Talk to me about this intergender thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a small statured guy. I'm 5'8", 165. I'm a firm believer in stuff making sense, right? So I'm not a threat to the girls. Like, I'm about the same size as all of them. So on WWE television, I wrestled Becky Lynch, like I just said. That was my first intergender match there. And we wrestled in London on TV. So much fun, man. Like, she's obviously became what she's become, and I'm so happy for her because she's so awesome. And she was awesome back then. I knew back then this is your top girl. Like, before she got the push, I was like, this girl's your top girl. And but yes, and then I eventually wrestled Asuka on television twice. So I did a couple of those, and then on the indies, I've wrestled Shotzi Blackheart and Thunder Rosa, and like girls that are on TV now, Emma, like all these girls that are on TV right now, Penelope Ford. So it's just fun, like it's entertainment. Anytime I would wrestle a girl, the crowd would be into it. They're like, "Oh, James is about to get the crap kicked out of him by this girl." Like it's just fun entertainment.
Yeah, because I seen a few weeks ago, Scotty 2 Hotty was put up that promoters were booking him for these intergender matches, and he just said, "Look, I don't want to do it anymore," and that was his choice. But he got a load of fucking backlash and shit like that. Did you see all that happening?
I heard a little bit about it, but here's the thing: like, like not everybody has to agree. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that how the world is now. Or if you disagree, then you're a villain because you're not agreeing with that other person's opinion. I'm like, whoa. Like, no. We're allowed to disagree. It's okay to disagree. Like, I will wrestle a girl any day of the week because it's entertaining, it's fun. And a lot of the girls probably in real life, like, would give me a run for my money or kick my ass. So, like, but it's like, Scotty 2 Hotty, and I respect Scotty 2 Hotty. I've met him a few times. If you don't want to do it because he feels like he doesn't want to hit a woman or tell the story of him hitting a woman, that's just his opinion. It's not right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. It's just his opinion. So people get mad at his opinion or anyone else's opinion. It's crazy to me, man, how the world is these days with that. We're allowed to have our own opinions about things. I don't mind wrestling women, and he does. So we can agree to disagree and move on.
It's funny because you get Big Daddy. Big Daddy feels the exact same way. He doesn't like intergender wrestling because it promotes violence against women. He hates it. In fact, if I have it at a Paradise Alley show, if Roma books one, he won't come to the show. He won't watch it. You know what I mean? Let's back up a little bit. So you're 2014 to 2016. Was that?
No, 2016, 17, and 18.
2016 to 18.
Yeah.
There's one question there, Mario, we just need to ask because it's been on screen for the last 15 minutes. Just someone wanted to know, James, what's Triple H like as a person off camera?
So I didn't have much interaction with him because I didn't go through NXT, so they didn't have time and money invested in me. And that's probably another reason I was only there for 2 years. But I will tell you this. He helped AJ Styles and I put our ladder match together when I did the ladder match for my contract. That was the angle on SmackDown. And I loved learning from him so much, Tori. And I never got to tell him this. He put that ladder match. He helped us put that ladder match together, and it all made sense. I was like, and I thought to myself, man, I wish I could learn from this guy more because everything was so smooth and everything made sense. I'm a firm believer in things making sense, and I'll get back to the intergender thing with making sense there in a second. But he was always nice to me, always very, very professional and cool. But I'll never forget him helping us put that ladder match together for SmackDown because I learned so much, and I never got to tell him that. Like, man, I wish I could have went to NXT. I wish I was younger, or you guys sent me the NXT. That way I could have been under the learning tree of Triple H because what a brilliant mind. And obviously he's running the show now in the Bloodline storyline, which Vince, created, he helped create that. But like the way it's booked now is probably the best storyline they've done in 20 years, maybe even longer. And I bet you he has a lot to do with that. Paul Heyman has a lot to do with that, and everybody involved has a lot to do with that. But Triple H is running the show right now, so everything obviously gets, goes by him. But yeah, I wish I would have had more of a relationship with him because I respect him so much, and I just love learning. And I feel like it just that little ladder match we had on SmackDown, I learned so much, and I never got to tell him that.
There's someone looking in the comments there for you to face Paul Roma, James.
Pretty Paul Roma, pretty wonderful when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, I loved the heels. Like my friends would get mad at me. Maybe that's why I loved the heels. When I was like 8, 9 years old at Pretty Wonderful Walk on TV, Paul Roma and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. I would hope they'd win and this and that. Oh, why are you cheering for Pretty Wonderful? They're a bad guy. I'm like, no, these guys are cool. Like, so I'll take on Paul Roma any day of the week. I respect and love them.
That's one of my favorite things going with Scott Wilder to these wrestling conventions where, especially with Roma, the guys that got out in the early millennium, 2010 or 12. Their jaws just drop when they see Roma and they walk up to him, hey, and just talk his ear off. You know what I mean? Like I said, I never watched it. And when I was at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, this guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, Mario Mancini. I go, yeah, how you doing? He goes, yeah, thank you so much for what you've done. I really, it's an honor to meet you. And I go, who are you? He goes, I'm Matt Stryker. I go, you're in the business? He goes, yeah, I was. I go, what did you do? He goes, I was a wrestler with the WWE, and then I did color commentary and stuff. I went, oh, okay. I don't watch it, so I don't know. I don't know. And I get really happy because a guy like me, reviews their career. And it wasn't until guys like Scott Wilder and Joe Bruin got a hold of me to do these conventions, and I didn't even know I was in the WW 3 editions of the WWE Encyclopedia. I had no idea. But they made me think that, maybe I did a little more than I thought I did, because when I got out, I'm like, in 1980, when I was 14 years old, I looked at my family and said, I'm going to be the next Bruno Sammartino.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't work out that way. I am one of the top 10 jobbers in pro wrestling history. So it didn't work. It didn't work out that way. And I really didn't think much of anything I did. I'm like, well, that was shit. That didn't work out the way I thought it would. And, who's going to remember that? You know what I mean? Just getting, squashed every week on TV. I mean, it was, but they did. Somehow they do. And, people inbox me. I got one this week. I used to watch you when I was a little kid. I always rooted for you because I was Italian too, they said. And I said, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? But I just, I love having guests like James, because I like to hear the disparity in just the mood of the dressing room, and the disparity of Vince's, the way he conducted himself so differently back then, in your time than my time.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe because he was still trying to figure things out. And I think from 84 until WrestleMania, he put everything he had into it. And if it didn't work, there was no more WWF.
Mm-hmm.
He went in the hock for WrestleMania, and it worked. And then, I was there for the early years. So maybe he was just so focused on figuring things out. And once he got established, maybe he became a different guy. Because let me tell you something, Strongbow has, Terry Garvin has, Arnold Skolin, guys like that, but Vince has never come to me, put his arm around me and go, hey, pal. Never. So that's incredible. Those are incredible stories. I mean, did you ever have anything to do with Brett or no? Brett was out. Taker?
He did a promo. We did the 2016 Survivor Series, Team SmackDown versus Team Raw, and we were all like, they did an angle where Team SmackDown was bickering at each other, and we're all in the ring bickering at each other. And Undertaker made his entrance, and got in the ring, cut a promo on us all. So I got to be in the ring for one of the Undertaker's live entrances, and I was like, "Well, this, growing up watching Undertaker, again, one of those moments where like, really, like, is this my life where I'm in the ring and the Undertaker's making his entrance on TV and about to cut a promo, and I'm a part of it?" Like, so that was cool. Yeah. Then I'll tell you a very cool Undertaker story. The 2017 Royal Rumble, which I got to be a part of. I was in the Royal Rumble that year.
Wow.
After the Royal Rumble was over, this will stick with me the rest of my life. Just a respect thing. After Royal Rumble was over, we're all in the locker room, getting, putting our gear, taking our gear off, putting our shoe clothes back on, and the Undertaker came in the locker room and shook everyone's hand that was in the Royal Rumble and said,
Correct.
"Thank you."
Correct.
And I said, "Oh my God, like I will never disrespect." Yeah, I will never disrespect another wrestler's, even if they disrespect me. Like, that's the Undertaker, and he made sure he shook 29 other men's hands.
Correct.
So
Correct.
wow, like that again, you learn little things that people maybe didn't think you learned or noticed that you learned. But
James, we did that all the time, though. That's protocol. That's what you do. I mean, I'm glad that it really made a mark on you. But in my day, if you didn't do that, you were getting a receipt.
Well, yeah, like this day and age, you shake everybody's hand when you walk into the arena, and you shake everybody's hand when you leave. But after like a Royal Rumble, when there's 29 other guys in there,
we used to do that in a Battle Royal. We used to shake everybody's hands after we got back. We thank you. I remember
guys don't do that, like, and he did. And now I made sure to this day, to that day till now, this is 6 years ago now, I make sure to do that. Like, I try not to miss a hand.
That right.
Mario was Taker's first opponent, James.
Who was it?
Mr. Mancini there in the middle.
Nice.
He was
Yeah.
Undertaker's first opponent.
Or really, was it a house show before the Survivor Series?
What was it? It's my claim to fame. So,
Tombstone.
Or was it me, Mark Calloway at the time?
Well, no. It was his first appearance as the Undertaker, the very first time. What happened was it was in Rochester, New York, on January 19th, 1990.
It was Kane the Undertaker.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it was taped on January 19th. I'm sorry, November 19th, 1990. It was taped. It was TV taping. 2 days later was a Survivor Series. He made his live debut. And then they showed my match after the Survivor Series. So Vince was, the Survivor Series didn't even happen yet. And Vince was doing a commentary saying he made an impressive debut at the Survivor Series and it didn't even happen yet.
Right.
So, it's one of those technical things, those logistic things that technically
you're his first opponent of the Undertaker. That's really cool. That's really
cool. Yeah. So, I remember being in the dressing room and Strongbow was he always did the board TV, and I'm watching all 3 hours, going up, making sure I'm either on all three of them or 2 out of 3 of them. I wanted to work every hour. And I just saw, Undertaker v. Mancini. I go, who the hell is that? I go, who the hell is that? He goes, the guy in the black over there, that tall guy. I said, oh, man. I go, how tall is he? Like 6'9"? I go, he's tall. So I walked up to him and I go, because his name is Mark. I go, all right. So I walked up to him. I say, Mark? Yeah. I said, Mario Mancini, how you doing? We're working together. I said, I've been here about 6 years, so we're good. He goes, oh, okay. I go, what's the finish? He goes, a tombstone. I go, what is that? He goes, it's a reverse pile driver. I said, oh, I've taken half a dozen of those from the Magnificent Morocco. So I go, anything else? He goes, yeah, really important. I go, what is it? And I'm looking up at the student. I'm like, what is it? And he's like, I'm going to walk the top rope. I go, you're going to walk the top rope? He goes, yeah, but the thing is, I'm going to have you in an arm bar. He goes, and if your elbow collapses, I'm fucked. I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'll keep it locked. Believe me. He said, okay. And it was funny. I tell a story. He goes, I'm going to clothesline you backwards over the top rope. He goes, you've done that before, right? I'm like, oh, yeah. He goes, all right, that's about it. I go, all right. He goes, I'll call everything else in there. I go, okay. So I go back and I sit down and I go, fuck. I've never gone over the top rope backwards before. I go, 6 years, I've never done that. I go, geez. And I'm sitting there in my head going, how do I do that? And then the day after, I talked to Fuji and he told me how you did it, but I didn't do it that way that night. So I go, how do you do this? And I was too embarrassed because I've been there so long to go up to somebody and go, how do you go over the top rope backwards? I was too embarrassed. So I'm sitting there, James, and I go, if the top rope is level with my lower back, I'll go right over. I'll go right over, right? So now he nobody catches it until I point it out. No one catches it. If I tell you about it and you rewatch it, then you catch it. So he chokes me, and the referee tells him to stop choking me. He turns and starts walking toward the referee like he's going to do something to him. And I go to the top rope and I push it down to my lower back. And I even gave a glance to make sure it was going to land on anything. And he came back and he clotheslined me, and I went right over the top onto the floor. Like I said, nobody catches it until I point out, and then they watch it again and go, oh, you son of a bitch, I saw you do that. But you know, people like to ask me, did you know he was going to be so big? Did you know he was going to last 30 years? And I'm like, yeah, no.
Of course not. Yeah.
No. Listen, I was Big Bully Busick's debut match. He was there. I don't know. Was he there a year? You know what I mean? SD Jones and I were the debut match for the Hart Foundation when they first came out. I was Bundy's debut. I missed that son of a bitch. Died on me. Oh God, did I love that guy?
He's a good guy. I met him.
Oh my God, did he break my balls every time I saw him? Man, he would give me such a hard time.
Yeah, he's funny.
He'd make fun of me all night long, man, all night long. So yeah, this was a different era in wrestling. I enjoy listening to it. It's like when we had Randy Hogan on.
Yeah, and you two were in the business at the same time, but in separate
He's
companies.
a good guy. I've seen him here and there.
And listen, tomorrow night we have Reno Riggins on, and Mario and him don't really know each other either. And Reno was Kane's first opponent, and Mario was Undertaker's first opponent.
Wow.
Yeah. So all this banter, all this banter going on with Vince and all these guys, all this banter. It's like that just didn't happen. It just never happened.
Social media, man, like it's not right. So
that banter in the dressing room, we stuck to ourselves, but it just never happened. I mean, the closest guy I was to in the business as far as being bosses was Jay Strongbow. He was my second father, and I stuck to him. I didn't give a damn if Chief would fall asleep standing up against the wall, poke him, Chief. But I would stick to Strongbow, and we were very close for 28 years, even up shortly before he passed away. And again, I've mentioned on other podcasts that I have the privilege now recently of knowing his best friend and talking to him on a weekly basis and hearing stories about Chief that I would tell him, listen, that wasn't Chief inside the business. You feared him. You didn't want to piss him off. He was a boss. You didn't want to piss him off, but to hear the banter with friends and the ribs and the jokes and everything outside the wrestling business is amazing. So I would talk to Pat Patterson and I don't know. I'm sure Pat was hanging around there, James. I'm sure he was still putting his input in.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was, I broke in so long ago. George Scott was the booker. Pat wasn't even the booker yet. I broke in so long ago, a guy with pink tights and thin hair that bounced when he walked. I was standing with Strongbow, and this guy was walking to the bathroom. And I said, Chief, who's the guy with the pink trunks with my initials on him? And he goes, mind your business, Mancini. I said, Chief, the guy's got M&M on his trunks. I go, I can't even I couldn't wear the Italian flag. I had trunks made out of the Italian. I couldn't wear that out to the ring. I wasn't allowed because the Iron Sheik complained that those were his colors. And because the Sheik ratted on me to Pat came up to me and said, you can't wear those out there. Let alone go, hey, pal, come here. Couldn't wear trunks out there. So, it was, so Chief goes, mind your own business. I go, what's his name? He goes, Macho Man. I go, like the Village People? And look what he turned into me.
Oh, yeah.
There's little nothing, minuscule Mario Mancini, who meant nothing, questioning one of the biggest stars that ever ever got in a ring. Ended up being one of the biggest stars that was ever in the business because he had Eminem on his trunks. The lowly jobber was asking Chief J Strong.
James, could I ask you about someone that I've heard you talking about him before, and I still think that this guy is like one of the best, if not the best, in the business still to this day. And just have you any stories about working with this man? I'll flash up a picture here. The two of you guys. Chris Jericho. Still got it.
That's my buddy. I just saw Chris recently at Jay Briscoe's funeral. The Briscoes, they're from Delaware. And obviously, I'm sure you've heard we tragically lost Jay Briscoe in a car accident. And I've known the Briscoes my whole career because they're from Delaware. I'm from Maryland. It's an hour from each other. So we would see each other at all the indie shows for the last 20 years. And Chris Chris, I call him my big brother in wrestling because, anytime I have a question or I need to talk to him, he's right there for me if I text him or whatever. So I just recently saw Chris. Funniest story about Chris, though. He put me on when he was doing that list gimmick in WWE.
Yeah, the promo.
Yeah, so he put me on the list, and I swear to you, every day since then, that was November of 2016. We're in February of 2023. Every day, fans send me that clip of him putting me on the list. It never ends. It hasn't ended since then. I don't think it's ever going to end. So I finally told him, I said, since you did that, it gets sent to me every day. There's not a day that goes by in my life where I do not see that clip. So, pretty funny.
Well, Maurice, there you go. Maybe that's his brother, like Roma's mine.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Schmazzy? What is it? What is it?
Symmetry.
No. What is that? Fonzie? What is it?
Oh, Fozzy.
Yeah.
We don't talk every day or anything, but I just recently saw him. But if I text him, he gets right back to me. If I have a question, he's more than happy to answer it. And he does that with a lot of young talent, man. Like he's in his 50s now and he's still in AEW, killing it. He's putting the young talent over. He's helping them. He's giving them the rub. He's bringing them up.
Would you be open to working in AEW if that opportunity came?
Well, listen, man. Like I just like to perform. Doesn't matter if it's in front of 7 people or 75,000. And I've done both.
You're still young enough to do it.
So it's what I do for a living. Still, I run shows. I wrestle independent wrestling shows.
You teach?
I do not have a school, but I did train this guy, Big Trouble Ben Bishop, who he just was on Young Rock as an extra. He's legit 6'10", great shape, good looking guy. Hopefully he gets signed soon because he has everything you need to get signed. He moves around good for his size as well. So that was the most recent person I've taught is Big Trouble Ben Bishop. Look him up. And literally he was just on Young Rock Friday.
Where does he live?
He lives in Georgia right now. He's from Maryland originally. Oh, well, yeah, he lived in Maryland when I met him and started training him the day after I met him because he came to a show and he's 6'10", good looking guy in really good shape. I was like, oh, who are you here with? He goes, I'm just a fan. I was like, excuse me? Like, you look like you should be in WWE right now, like wrestling Brock Lesnar. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I want to train. I don't really, like a lot of the schools are expensive. I said, dude, we have a show tomorrow in Hanover, Pennsylvania. If you come, I'll start training you right then and there. Because I just saw something in him. He has everything. And then we get him in the ring, and he's just so agile for a big guy. He's been in 3 years now. Literally, this February is his 3 years, so he's still fairly new. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes, I taught him, and I expect big things out of him. So, but yeah, man, like Jericho, back to him. He's always been great to me. I've always been when I saw him 2 weeks ago at the funeral, last thing I said to him was, man, I always appreciated you, helping me out and he said, man, I appreciate you. You're always a good guy to me. You're always very respectful. Like just good, we don't talk that much or see each other that much, but when we do, it's that bond,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And one other question was CM Punk. I don't know if you guys ran into each other when you were there. He was kind of coming out when you were going in, wasn't he?
I've never met CM Punk.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking.
I wish I had. I don't know what he would have thought of me or but I respect what he's done in the business. I've never got to know him, so I don't have opinion of him, good or bad, because I don't know him, but I do respect what he's done in the business. And obviously, he was a draw. He, sold pay-per-views, sold T-shirts. He did very well. And, I think anyone that's getting into business, obviously a guy like that's who you want to study, a guy that, did very well for themselves on a high level. So that's my only opinion of him, is I do respect what he's done in the business. Other than that, I don't know him personally whatsoever because I've never met him.
Yeah. You any questions to round up the show, Mario, for James?
Well, I'll tell you what, I just want to say that I've listened to James for an hour, and he's one of the last of them. You know why? Because he's very gracious, very humble, and he appreciates everything that he went through in the wrestling business. And I'm glad we had him on, because James, you lived my dream. And you lived my dream, man. That was my dream. You lived it. I would have loved to have 2 years like that. And Big Daddy will end up calling me when he watches this and goes, "What's wrong with you? You were in the golden age of wrestling. You never give yourself any credit or anything like that." It's just hard when you're doing the same thing all the time, and you have to get excited if Jake the Snakes gives you a slam, or you have a 7-minute TV match with Playboy Buddy Rhodes, and you get to do a lot, and you get these you get to snatch the money out of Ted DiBiase's hand.
So let me ask you this, right? This will blow your mind. I'm sure you have. Did you ever get to work Madison Square Garden? Once. Okay. So now, how many wrestlers in the history of wrestling, right, you think got to work the Garden? Maybe 5,000, right? Like, let's just say 5,000 out of millions and millions of wrestlers that would have loved to work Madison Square Garden, and you got to do it. So never sell yourself short.
Against Atlas. Atlas had me up. I was such a good young.
You didn't step on his face, did you?
Well, no, I was
that was weird.
Wrestler. I had my hands on his shoulders, ready to push down when he pressed me, and I was up there, and he said, "Hey, kid, get your hands off my shoulders." And I just dangled there, and he went, boom. But yeah, I mean, when it really hit me, even though I have heat with him, well, it really hit me when Mark Henry, and I think it was the Big Show, was doing that show gathering Andre's past stuff.
Yeah.
Going
over. Yeah.
And they were just crying, and Mark Henry's crying, and they're just blown away, and they're like, "Oh, Andre the Giant." I'm like, I was with Andre every night. I mean, did I miss something? I'm like, did I not?
Just so respectful.
Did I take something for granted here? Because
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, those guys, they never got to meet Andre, and like he's just so respected in business. And when you say, "Oh, you have heat with him," I don't know what happened. I won't ask, but like, if people have heat with me, like I always want them to know I don't have heat with them, because man, this wrestling thing is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be a good time, and I'm blessed to make money at it. But I don't.
James, I was in Baltimore. I believe it was Scott. You still watching? Was that Baltimore? I think I was in Baltimore, and
daughters are playing around upstairs loud.
And
oh god.
And Mark Henry came in. And what had happened is Scott Wilder said, "Listen, I want you to do the big event in New York." I'm like, "Oh, all right. Thanks, Scott." I'm like, "Oh, Scott, I don't know." He's like, No, Mario, I want you to do the big event in New York." So he goes, Taker's going to be there.
Oh yeah, I remember the one he did. I was at that one. Yeah.
Okay. So Scott's got balls. You know what? I've seen the guy in a couple situations he just doesn't care. He doesn't. He's guy's got balls. So he goes, come on, let's go. So we go up. Mark's behind a door, a wall. And he goes up to Fetterman and he goes, listen, I got Mario Mancini here. Before the mayhem started, and I hate using that term because when I finally looked it up in law school, mayhem means like dismemberment. So, but when it started, before it started, he's like, hey, he's Taker's first opponent. Just wants to shake his hands for 10 seconds, congratulate him for the Hall of Fame and everything. 1 second. So we're standing there about 15 minutes because, line's starting to form. Do you mind if you come back when it? Yeah, Scott goes, totally understand. Go back to my table, my autographs. A few hours later, Scott goes, it's slowing down now for Taker. Let's go back up there. Well, long story short, I didn't get the respect.
Yeah.
I didn't get the respect. And I was hot. So I went on the podcast and I mentioned how much he was getting for that appearance. And it got back to Mark Henry. And at first, I was like, Mark Henry loved me because a fan came up to me in Rhode Island at a convention and he opened up his encyclopedia and I saw my signature there. And I go, bro, I already signed your encyclopedia. He goes, no, Mario, look. Because I'm right next to Mark Henry. He goes, look, I got Mark Henry. I said, oh, okay, good. He goes, no. When I opened up the book for him to sign it, he looked at your signature and went, you really saw Mario Mancini? And he went, yeah, it was in Rhode Island. He went, man, I would love to meet him. Because these guys, when they were 11 years old, they were sitting on their living room floor watching me. So he goes, man, I'd love to meet him until this happened. So got back to Mark Henry. Mark Henry was hot. He had no business mentioning his money. Why did Mario mention his money? He had no right mentioning his money. No right mentioning his money. So now Maurice gets a hold of me, and Maurice is kind of tight with the Godfather. So I'm like, he goes, look, let me get a hold of the Godfather. Let me see if I can straighten this out for you. He'll get a hold of Taker or get a hold of Mark Henry. We'll see if we can fix this thing. So I really didn't hear anything. So now I'm in Maryland. Mark Henry comes in a couple hours after it starts. So I'm watching his table. And I have a silhouette shirt, that says Mario Mancini on it. So his line slowed down. So I walked over and he was kind of like this. And he looked and he saw my shirt and he saw me and he went, I said, we have heat. Old school. I said, we have heat. Nah, man, I just don't think it was right what you did. That's all. I go, listen to me. If I was working you WrestleMania and you told me your payday and I repeated it, I got a big receipt coming. You have every right to hate me for the rest of your life, get me in the ring and beat the shit out of me. This was outside the wrestling business. I go, you want me to look up what The Rock got for his last movie? You can look that up right here. Am I going to get heat for that if I say it? It's all here. It's all right here. No, man, I don't agree. I go, that's the way I see it.
We just agree to disagree and move on, like I said earlier.
And he said, let's do this. You're from a different era of the business than I am. Things were different when you were in, and things were different when I'm in. Let's just agree on that. Mm-hmm. And we shook hands, and I hugged him. And then Roma came over, and he looked at Mark Henry, and he goes, I have to kick the shit out of anybody here, do I? And Mark Henry went, Paul Roma, and everything was good. And I went back to my table, and Roma's supposed to be sitting next to me. So I look at my brother Kevin that's sitting next to me there, and I go, where's Roma? He goes, oh, he's holding court over there with Mark Henry and a couple other guys. They're around Roma. Roma's in a circle, and his hands are going crazy, telling all these stories and everything. But, he's probably still pissed at me. But, I said, listen, I was disrespected. And to this day, nobody will tell me any different that Taker made his Hall of Fame speech. And he went through this big part of his Hall of Fame speech about respect. Do you remember that? Then shortly after, he's talked about the first night in the WWF, the WWE in Rochester, and that he had to take it to, he goes, at a squash match. He goes, oh, excuse me, enhancement talent. And I'm sitting in my recliner going, this guy just had a 10-minute conversation about respect. And he just disrespected jobbers. He just totally.
Well, no, that's what they call them these days. Is all. So I think he was making fun of that. That's all.
You know what though, James? You know what though, James? I own Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. I own it, and Roma runs it with me, and it's a school and it's a promotion. And I'd love to book you on a show. I'd love to
against Paul Roma.
And you know what?
Does he still wrestle Paul Roma?
No,
I love to wrestle Paul Roma.
Well, he's looking for one more match, but it's not with you. It's with Ric Flair.
Ric Flair. Yeah. But you know what, James? If I put you on the poster, you'll draw. You'll draw. See, I couldn't draw flies. See, I can't draw a house, but I want my respect for building one.
Right. Yeah. You were part of making people, you know.
I was a carpenter. Okay. All right. When they needed that stretcher match with Orndorff before WrestleMania 1, they called on me. They needed that stretcher match with Bundy before WrestleMania 3, they called on me. They need stretcher match with Savage before WrestleMania 4, they call on me. Okay. I just want.
No, it's a very important piece to the puzzle, especially back in those days. Not so much these days, but those days, yes.
Right. So all I wanted was 10 seconds. I mean, you have this big speech about respect, and then you disrespect the jobbers. You know what I mean? And when he did that, I go, he is making fun of me. I'm convinced that was for me. And you know how much my phone blew up that night? Because he said he had to take it to the jobber that night because he screwed up the match and he actually beat the shit out of the kid. Was that you? Was that you? Was that you? Was that, hey, are you watching that? Was that? I go, listen, go on YouTube and watch my match. It was seamless. That wasn't me. That must have been the guy he worked with in the third hour after me, because that wasn't me. He didn't beat the shit out of me. It was like a normal match. Normal match.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So no, it wasn't me. And I had to tell the 55 people that inboxed me, no, it wasn't me. He's talking about another jobber. You know what I mean? So I have no problem if I saw Mark face to face going, bro. You know why? Because when I was at the New England Pro Wrestling, this is a funny story. I get in an elevator, and I'm with an elevator with another guy with this handlebar mustache. Had no idea who it was. Get off the elevator. We go, get off the elevator, and we go into the ballroom. His table is kind of diagonal from mine, probably 25 feet away. He goes to his table. He looks over at me. He goes, "You're Mario Mancini." I go, "Big Bully Busick." And he runs over and he gives me this huge hug. He goes, "You're my debut match." I go, "Yeah." We sat there. He goes, "Let's watch it." We watched it on YouTube. He had everybody take pictures of my hand. He was raising my hand, right? And hugged me. He was pushing protein bars, hats. He loaded me up. I still have the hat. Poor guy passed away. May he rest in peace. I still have everything he gave me but the protein bars. He loaded me up with stuff. He couldn't show me enough respect. Couldn't show me enough. James, you know that's the business. You know it is. You know damn well it is.
Yeah, I know.
I got disrespected. So, you know what? There's a lot of guys Greg Valentine, Tito Santana, Strongbow. That's why I really love this interview with James, because James really is a throwback, because he does, if I spew off, he does what Strongbow does. I want you to notice what he's doing. He won't say a damn word. He'd rather just go, it was a good show. Take care. That's what you do. That's what you just sit there and do what he's doing. And that's a consummate pro, because he's going, hey man, got nothing to do with me. I'm not going to be on the air saying shit. I know you're mad, Mario, but that's you. I'm James.
Like I said earlier, I just, even if people don't like me or they hear fabricated stories about me or what, I was like, hey, I'm just here to have fun and make money, and I'm gonna have a good time with this.
So, that's a mouthful, because I say it to Roma and I say it to the students. I go, listen, I have a full-time job that's very stressful. I've been with a law firm for 28 years, and life gets very stressful, and Paradise Alley is there for me to have fun. And if I can't have fun, I'm not going to do it. And I want my students to have fun. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, that's what we're there for, is to have fun. So let's get off the heat stuff. But let me tell you something, man. Maurice, I'd love if we had James on again.
We could do that.
And please, I'd like his information, because I get this. I have.
How far are you guys? How far are you guys away from each other? Like, I live in Ireland, so what's the distance?
5 hours.
So okay, Baltimore. What part? You're in New York or?
No, Connecticut.
Connecticut. Oh yeah, so about five. Yeah, around 5
in 5 hours. So, we have a really big show coming up in April or May. So, thank you, Lord. We produced a worker named Richard Holiday, and he has come pretty far. And he signed with MLW.
Yeah, he did the angle with Alicia Toot. I love Alicia Toot.
Right.
I know who he is. He's a good worker. I've been on some shows with him.
The biggest star out of our.
And he just recently had a concussion. Am I wrong with that? Concussion.
Cancer.
Cancer. Yeah, is he okay?
Yeah. In fact, he's going into remission, and he should be ready by April or May.
So he's okay though.
And you want to hear the way we taught him? No, he's under contract to MLW, and he wrestles all over the country and in Puerto Rico. And he got a hold of me, and he said, Mario, when I come back, my first match is home at Paradise Alley. Nice. That's my first match back, is at Paradise Alley. I said, kid, you'll be the only person on the poster. It'll be Back with a Vengeance. You know what I mean? So I'd love to have James on that show. We kind of got to squeeze him on that poster with Holiday, though, because people got to know you're going to be there. But yeah, man, this has been a real treat. I lived vicariously through his stories, imagining Vince McMahon calling me pal, which I can never imagine in a million years.
It's not going to happen anymore.
No, and it's never going to happen again after what I did. I'm the Taliban now. So, but, it was a pleasure, James. Really, you really good for you. Congratulations.
Appreciate good that. Pleasure's all mine. Enjoyed talking to you guys.
Good for you, man.
Cheers, gentlemen. Anyone watching tomorrow night, Mario Mancini is back on his YouTube channel, Cheapy Productions, tomorrow to interview.
I enjoyed this, and and I remember being a kid watching you do your jobs and everything. Like when I was a kid, I was always rooting for the jobbers. I'm like, man, one of these guys has one. And then when 1, 2, 3 Kid did it, like in '93, like I was I remember, and that was like I was 9, and I go, wow, like he did it. I can do it when I'm old, because I was always the small kid. I was like, when I'm older, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to do that. I'm gonna. It's just crazy how stuff works out.
And you know what? You know who they finally listened to? Because in the 80s, you know who would say that, preach that all the time?
Who's that?
Howard Finkel.
I was going to say Pat Patterson, because he was
Howard Finkel would go up to Pat and go, Pat, I'm telling you, out of the clear blue sky, have one of these guys just go over.
Nobody will expect it. And then once they did it with the kid.
Yeah, it'll explode. It'll explode.
This guy says my dad would beat you all in a fight. There you go.
Yeah,
Thanks
well,
for
it
that.
depends. It
But he
depends how much.
wasn't.
It depends how much you're going to pay me. It depends how much you're going to pay me. And you know, at these wrestling conventions, Scott's got on the menu that I'll do a job for you. There's actually a blue mat, and for a photo op, I lay down, you cover me, and we have somebody to count like they're counting 3, and Mario Mancini will do a job for you.
I'll tell you a funny story before I go. Like, it's kind of like that. So, like, sometimes on indie shows, if I'm right before intermission, if I'm a heel, I'll get on the mic and I'll talk about how I beat AJ Styles 3 times and no one in this crowd could beat me, and this opponent certainly ain't gonna beat me, and blah blah blah. And then the guy in wrestler will beat me, and he'll get on the mic and say, now he said that no one in here can beat him. So for $20, you can get in the ring and pin James Ellsworth right now while I'm laying there unconscious, and they all pay their $20 to get in the ring and pin. And I just take the money and go.
And Jesus go home and his pockets are bulging out.
Like so now here it gets even better. So after like the 9th or 10th person, right? I'm laying there. After the 9th or 10th person, then the referees count 1, 2, and they don't expect this. I get my shoulder up, like it freaks them out.
Fantastic! That is fantastic.
It freaks them out every time because 9 people just pin me in a row. 1, 2, and I get that shoulder up, and they freak out. Like, what do I do next?
Oh, that's fantastic!
Yeah,
fantastic, man.
That's just a good little story.
Awesome,
gentlemen. We're going to wrap it up there. Thanks a million.
Absolutely,
we'll
guys. Take care.
I'll see you tomorrow, Maurice.
Nice talking to you guys. God bless.